Welcome, B-Movie fans, to this week's episode of B-Movie Chat. Today's topic is horror through the decades. Every generation brings something new to the genre of horror, whether it's due to technology changes or changes in the social environment. So today we will be talking what some of those changes have been, and which eras we think are the best. Joining for this chat, we have Phantom Dark Dave and the host of the podcast Fright Club, Hope and George. Everyone, welcome to the show.
Thanks for the invite. Does this mean we're honorary bros?
I'd say so, yep.
All right.
You've passed the initiation. So, as far as horror goes, do you guys have a favorite era of horror, like a favorite decade or anything like that? Kind of a loaded question, but
Well, I'm usually Mr. 70s. I like all things 70s because that's pretty much when I grew up and I came of age. So I'm partial to the 70s.
You know, it's not, on the whole, that's not necessarily my era, but in terms of especially American horror, I got to actually go with the 70s, late 60s to mid to late 70s, I think is the best era until today, honestly.
Yeah,
I think that from about 2005
yes.
to this very minute, we are seeing more great horror per day than we've ever seen in history.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I've loved horror all the way back to the silent film era, but there was something about the late 60s and the progression through the 70s where it established a type of horror movie and everybody went to mimic what others were doing. And some of the best horror movies out there came out in the mid to late 70s. But I feel like in the 80s, it went a whole different direction.
Yeah. Well, everything went a different direction in the 80s.
I think with almost all the decades, you can look at what was going on in the world. And you look at society, social, political movements in the late 60s, early 70s. There was a lot going on, and that was reflected in all types of art and of course, in horror movies.
Yeah, Vietnam, civil rights,
sexual
revolution, all those things work their way. And then also just in terms of independent film, generally speaking, movies left the studio system really in the late 60s and early 70s, and you saw a boom in independent filmmaking all over the United States. So that bled into horror too. And
also drugs.
Right, exactly. That helps everything.
Yeah, I know that the 80s became more of the splatter, let's make elaborate death scenes if we can. And the 90s was kind of weird because I feel like horror took a serious downfall, a huge dip. I think Scream was one of the better movies because it started to bring horror back. But yeah. I like what you said about, mid 2000s really creating this new type of horror because all these new filmmakers are coming out, and I don't know what term, but it just feels like people are getting, ballsier. Everybody's taking more and bigger risks. And you have some directors who are boycotting CGI. You have some directors who really just know how to get under your skin. Kind of like when you watch a James Wan film, you're watching, he creates, they're not even graphic, but there's general chills in his movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've also seen here, just in the last few years, a nice rise in female horror directors, which is showing, Anna Lily Amirpour and Jennifer Kent, the Babadook, that's yeah.
So I think, in the last 15 years, the availability of the technology has become just a democratizing factor in filmmaking. There are more great movies being made in every genre because they're easier to make. Which also means there are more bad movies being made in every genre. There are just more movies being made. But I think it's really benefited horror because horror also tends to be an easier film to make with a low budget. So I think a lot of first-time filmmakers, they're getting started over there. And we're seeing, just some really great movies.
And it's also a easy type of genre to turn a profit with low budget.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the IFC channel is loaded with horror movies, as is Netflix now.
Yeah, one of the things, since you said that movies became easier for independent filmmakers, was in the early 2000s, the whole found footage thing happened. So I think that kind of inspired a lot of people to, I can make my own movie in my backyard, basically. So you got some people who were very talented at it, some that weren't, but the ones that were, obviously you had the Blair Witch Project and you had Cloverfield and certain things like that. So I think that kind of helped inspire some creativity from unexpected places.
anything that's a success is going to get copycats in really anything. And of course, you'll see some that, like you said, have talent, and many that don't.
Right. But I think you're right, Paul. People saw a found footage film and thought, well, I could do that, and so, we saw a huge boom in those.
I had a question, Paul. I know where Hope and George stand on this, but I don't think you and I have really talked. How do you feel about the original Blair Witch Project?
I thought for what it was pretty good. I actually saw it like way after it came out, but I enjoyed it. I like the fact that they don't really show much of anything. I thought that just the anticipation that was built up really came to fruition at the very end. I thought overall it was pretty good.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever publicly announced it, but the Fright Club podcast is literally my favorite podcast. So if I have to know creepy info about them, it's just because I've listened to every episode in the last 4 months.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No, it definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like to take credit to get Paul into that. You're welcome.
But, so I assume what you're going to say is that the Blair Witch Project is the movie that scared me more than any other movie ever, which is true. It did.
Well, I was going to say, when he asked about found footage, I was like, oh, he's stepping on their toes now, because I know you particularly aren't too fond of that genre or that type.
I am not. You are correct. I am not. But we dug in and we found 5 that we really, really thought were great. Blair Witch among them. But it can be done well, but I think that too often filmmakers go to a found footage just as a cheat. It's an excuse to not have to really develop a storyline it certainly is a way to get around a budget, and I understand that. But I think far too often people cheat on the writing.
Yeah, and I still carry the flag for Blair Witch, because I think it gets a bad rap when people just think of it and remember all the baggage that all the years have brought, like the backlash from the social media campaign, and how everybody thought it was real for a while. And I think it's hard to look at it without all that baggage. But I think when it came out and you try to strip away all that's happened in all those intervening years, and I thought it was damn good.
Yeah.
I remember when that came out, and I did not get to see it in theater, but as soon as it was on VHS, I had got it, and a friend of mine watched it. And it's one of those movies, it's not like a party movie where everybody gather around, the lights are on. You have to really indulge in the film. Mm-hmm. And if you put yourself in that situation, that movie really is terrifying. It takes it places where everybody is uncomfortable. And you talked about, a lot of movies are scarred from bad writing, especially with found footage. And when I watched Blair Witch, I was like, this is so cool. Like, this group of people got together, said, let's make a movie, but let's really think about it, and let's put it out there, and let's really give it everything we got. We don't have a lot of money. We can't fake a ghost or a witch or anything, but we need to act like it's really there. And I think that it was very well done.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
Definitely. One thing I was thinking when you said that the reason people kind of do it is it's easy to do, and because a lot of them end up being the same movie was, in a lot of ways I kind of feel that's the way about slashers. Like, I love slasher films, but there are so many copycat slasher films out there, especially in independent films, where it kind of reminds me of the found footage thing, where it's just a guy kind of with a knife or an axe or some kind of sharp object killing people, because it's not that difficult to do if you have a few materials. I kind of feel like with certain genres like that, you're going to get a lot more copycats just because they are so easy to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. And after Halloween came out, the genre basically abandoned everything except slashers. Because that movie was made for so little money, and it made such an insane amount of money, and it just created a pattern that any other horror filmmaker could just follow, and they, for the entire decade made an assload of money on slashers. So I think you're right. And I think that there were so many made that it's almost impossible, without doing something like something really tongue-in-cheek like Scream, to do a slasher and have it be fresh in any way.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really like what that movie was able to do with kind of teaching some of the older movies, going over the rules and allowing new ground. Paul, you talked about, the 2000s, kind of being where found footage films are. And I would also say that shares another big point. I think the millennium has brought forth like the genre of remakes.
Oh yeah.
I think there's been a lot more remakes now than there ever has been.
Yeah, I think so too. Some of them are great. Most of them are not, but some of them are great.
Do you guys have any favorite? I think, George, your favorite's probably the Evil Dead remake, right? Versus the original.
I like the Evil Dead remake a lot, and then we always talk about American remakes of foreign films. We both like the remake of The Ring very much.
And Let Me In.
Let Me In.
Oh, Let Me In, yeah. Let Me In I love. Not quite as much as Let the Right One In, but it's close.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, what about you? Remakes better or just as good as an original?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think of ones that, like, whenever the word remake comes up, I instantly think bad. But yeah, there have been good ones. Darn. I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, as long as a remake, pays justice to the original in some way, it works for me. Like, I know the Blair Witch remake had recently came out, and I was really nervous about it. But I like Adam Wingard. I like what he does. I like the VHS stuff, so I checked it out. And you got to watch a movie without any expectation. And I was not disappointed. Not to mention. Just the way like the last 30 minutes go, really, I liked a lot.
Yeah, I did enjoy that, and technically speaking, it's a sequel and not a remake. I mean, although it does use a lot of the same tropes, and I think for good reason and for good effect. But I liked it. I
liked it too. Which is funny because it bombed.
It
also got really mixed to negative reviews, and I was surprised because I thought people who like the original would love it because it is pretty respectful of the original.
But yeah, ups the ante.
People who didn't like the original because they thought it was boring and didn't do anything would like this. There's tons of stuff happening.
Yeah, it surprised me too. But I was impressed by it. I know a lot of people talk about Adam Wingard. A lot of people like You're Next a lot better than I do. I thought Blair Witch was his best movie. Although to be fair, You're Next is one on our list to rewatch because it gets so much love, and I've only seen it once, and we didn't love it that much. But we want to see it again to give it another shot.
Yeah, I think you got to put me down. I actually like that movie a lot too. So.
Which one?
You're Next.
You're Next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean
that's fair. No, that's fair.
Curious to see if it does better.
Some deserve another look for sure.
So, man, we jumped right like the decades. We just went to modern.
Yeah, we did. And I know. Well, we know you like a lot of the older stuff, like way older.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the
like
boring one in the
1920s.
group. You don't even have to have dialogue talk, Yeah.
Well, that's okay. There can be some very effective, going back to the silent era for sure.
Well, you know what I love too about the ones that are back? Everything that came out before the MPAA ratings.
Yeah.
Because, there was some stuff in those movies that was so weird, just weird and wrong, which I'm always looking for.
Yeah, anytime you get one of those discs, it's got a big NR on it, or not rated. There's no warning of what you're getting into.
Yeah,
listen, you were doing something on Todd Browning the other day. Dave, and I know you're a big fan of his, and boy, he made, really, for me, before he made Dracula, he made some of his better, weirder movies, and my favorite of his is Freaks actually.
Yeah.
But, through the 20s and 30s, the stuff that he was making, on the whole, I think was mostly, aside from Dracula, under the radar and just subversive and brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to Paul. We were going back and forth over which director, and I'm like, how do you feel about Todd Browning? And Paul is Paul. He's like, cool, let's do it. And I'm like, well, it's a secret for me because, I want him to watch more Lon Chaney movies, and what better way than say, hey, well, they did like 5 together. You should check these out.
Yeah.
And, oh, man, there's so many movies by Todd Browning and Lon Chaney that I absolutely adore, and so many that you can still get, which is great. But this upcoming week, we're going to do one on London After Midnight, which nobody gets to own. It's so sad.
Oh.
Yeah, the lost silent film that have you guys you guys seen the Masters of Horror series, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember the cigarette burns episode where he's looking for the Le Fin Absolute Demon film? That's kind of like how I feel about London After Midnight. If someone's like, I have a surviving print, you can have it. just let me have an arm. I'll be like, which arm do you want? I would. Oh, so but the thing we're reviewing is really cool. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it, but it's like a 45-minute mashup of photos, and it's got the music and it tells the story very beautifully. I've already seen it. It's very effective. I mean, it puts together really well, but I hope to be able to talk about it and maybe get people to at least watch that kind of film.
I'd love to see it. We haven't seen
very,
that.
very cool.
It came in a box set that I have of Lon Chaney's, and I was like, oh yeah. So Paul, what's one of your favorite decades of horror?
One of my favorite decades, oddly enough, is the 1950s, because there was this weird trend of Attack of the Giant something, and I'm so intrigued by that because it's so funny. Like, I love those, like, oh, look out, there is a giant, fill in blank here, and I found those movies very charming.
Oh yeah, there's always room for a good monster movie.
Yeah, it's funny. So the 1950s was really the rise of William Castle, so which is the king of those, the king of those sort of. Look out! There's a giant praying mantis, or there's a tingler, or there's and then just generally speaking, it was a reaction to the Cold War and the idea that atomic power was going to create this sort of cataclysm on Earth. And it's funny, because once the original Godzilla came out, again, that was it for horror. That was it. You had creature features, period. You didn't have anything else until really the mid '60s.
I think my favorite director of the 1950s is Jack Arnold, because if you just look at his career and you just look at the middle, just a consecutive row of great movies, like 3 or 4 just big movies. Like he did Tarantula, and he did The Deadly Mantis, and he did Creature from the Black Lagoon, probably his number one. And it just all these movies back. And if he wasn't directing, he was writing or producing. He did Monster on Campus and This Island Earth and a whole bunch of I feel like he ruled the 50s, but that's my opinion alone.
It's funny because after that he went on to a ton of TV. I mean, directing Brady Bunches and Love Boat episodes and things like that into the 60s and 70s.
Which to some people are monster movies too.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I listened to you guys' last show where you guys were talking societal fears in films, and one of the ones you mentioned was Godzilla, and how that was basically the fear of radiation embodied into a giant lizard. And it's such a great idea. Like you guys are saying, there's the tarantula, the Attack of the Giant, giant everything, but Godzilla gets stood out so well because that was the one of all those that did it correctly. I mean, the others are really charming. That one mastered that kind of genre.
Yeah, it did. One of the things I liked about it was, it didn't blame the monster. The monster's going to kill us all, sure, absolutely, but it's our fault. We did this. I think that's one of the things that the original Godzilla got right, and that better creature features over the course of the next decade, they got right as well. If they did it right, and I loved how the concept then played out into the 70s with more low budget, low stakes movies like Squirm. Squirm is one of my favorites. Right, where it's not, it's just a power surge. I just loved how the concept of the creature feature sort of weaseled its way into the genre and never really left us.
That kind of reminds me of the original Frankenstein from 1931, where the movie basically tells you the monster is not really at fault, but everyone thinks he is. So it's kind of like Godzilla in that sense, where you kind of realize how much we messed up in doing something, and it's definitely interesting kind of concepts.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's funny if you compare that one with even Hammer's Curse of Frankenstein, or it's different. The James Whale one the film has so much empathy for the monster, and Boris Karloff's performance is so tender and wonderful. I think that's why that one is easily the best of all the Frankenstein movies, is because of this investment in this poor creature. It's not his fault, and he's going to be miserable forever, and the rest of us are just paying the price for one guy deciding to play God.
Right, and if you even take it farther and you just look at the whole film as a metaphor between God and man, and you can draw empathy that way. Like,
right.
we're the imperfect creation.
Right.
You can look at it that way as well.
Yeah.
So, Paul, I think we need to do that director soon so we can review Frankenstein. They're making me want to watch it again.
I love James Whale.
Yeah.
I
like it much better than Dracula.
Oh, yes, definitely. And I like Bride of Frankenstein better than Frankenstein.
Yeah, that was the number one on y'all's Black and White, if I'm not mistaken.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I think, if I'm not, same director, right? He did that both?
Yes, James Whale.
James Whale.
Awesome. So, Paul, I was going to ask you, we talked about some of the greatness of the 70s, right? What about the 80s? As the styles changed, did any horror movies in the 80s pop out to you since you like slashers so much?
Well, definitely like the obvious ones like Nightmare on Elm Street. I think Halloween 2 came out that year as well. I think that was 81.
What about those, like, I don't know, I think it's 80s, but, when they did like the Driller Killer and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that was like 78.
Oh, was it? Just missed it.
Yeah.
I just hold that in my head, when they pride themselves on squirting ketchup bottles on the sheetrock. I'm like, that's 80s horror right there. Because it's all about rock and roll and, everything else.
Yeah, you can always tell when the movie's made in the 80s. The style is undeniable. Of course, I have to say with the 80s, The Evil Dead and The Evil Dead 2, which are some of my favorite films.
I think my favorite film from the 80s is a remake, so I can nail two birds on one stone, and I have to say John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And then, of course, don't forget that, the 80s, at the very beginning in 1980, had The Shining.
That's true.
Right, yeah, The Shining.
Oh, man.
Poltergeist is a great one. American Werewolf in London is a brilliant film. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer came out in 1986, which is maybe the one bright spot of all film in 1986. Because the late 80s sucked artistically. We had hair metal, we had shitty movies, but The Shining, though,
But The Thing, no, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
I love The Thing. That's my favorite John Carpenter movie.
It's solid. Yeah, and it's one that's only gotten better with age,
right.
I think.
Yeah, I can't remember if you guys discussed this part or not, but when thinking about the movie The Thing, what was your thoughts on the very end sequence of that movie of who's an alien now? I can't remember.
Yeah, there was differing opinions when you get the DVD, maybe DVD commentary back when it came out. The one actor was talking about how he figured out who was an alien and who wasn't. But then there was a contradiction, I think, to that. It's like who had either a filling or an earring or something like that. And then I think, because I haven't seen the DVD commentary, I just remember reading about it, prepping for that podcast, and that there are some commentaries either that contradict maybe the one actor and John Carpenter himself. So I'm not quite sure. It kind of leaves you hanging. It kind of leaves it ambiguous.
One of the things I love about it is that if John Carpenter was certain when he made it who was and who wasn't at the end, he didn't tell any of the actors.
Right.
So, because they'll all say that is
that,
they were playing it not knowing whether they themselves were aliens or whether they were real people.
Which is perfect.
It is perfect.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's the best way to do it, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was your John Carpenter or Alien top 5 where this one was on there and you talked about it, and I actually went on and looked at YouTube videos, and so many people actually just sit there and talk about their own theories about it. Yeah. So it's some very interesting things going on.
We love nerds.
And geeks, right?
That's right. Those are people.
2 movies from the 80s I have to mention are Reanimator and Hellraiser.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
Uh-oh.
That's a good one to bring up, because for us, that's one of the ones where we differ in a different way. Usually it's a movie that she likes that I don't, like Evil Dead 2. But then there's one, Hellraiser. I have a lot of love for Hellraiser, and she does not.
I like the villains. I love Pinhead. I love all the villains. And I like a lot of the storyline. I like Aunt Julia and the creepiness, but I can't, the screechy lead actress and, I don't love Hellraiser as much as I should. I gotta admit it.
Hey, that's okay.
I don't love Clive Barker as much as I should.
I actually met Clive Barker.
Ooh,
Wow.
nice.
Yeah, I got his autograph on this 11 by 14 poster. It's pretty cool. It was a horror convention in Texas, and I paid a lot of money, and I got the wife and I into the VIP party.
Ooh.
And of course, he didn't show up to that, but we did get to. I got to hang out with the whole crew of Human Centipede and take some pretty funny pictures. So that was cool. You got my arms around each other, but then you could see the Corona in one hand. But no, I was going to say.
Awesome.
So I spent the whole next day waiting
Showering?
just to meet him, and it was like 20 seconds of awesomeness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Human Centipede. Woo.
Yeah.
That's one series I've somehow avoided. I'm actually surprised I haven't seen any of them. I'm not sure if I really want to, though.
You know,
Paul.
I like the first one. George, I don't think did like the first one, but again,
No.
I love it. The
That
villain
creepy
is-
doctor, though.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
I like the first one. I don't like the second one, and the third one is just so over the top as to be comical and sort of soul deadening at the same time.
Yeah,
so,
I don't have a lot of use for him
I
myself.
like the first one. Seeing.
D. Macaulay, the director of the Scars film that I wrote,
Yeah.
his his quote for that was, "I wish I had thought of that."
Oh, absolutely.
That tells you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
Absolutely.
that's crazy, man.
Although I do have to I got a kick out. I think it was maybe the second one where they put on the poster 100% medically accurate.
Yeah,
Good
that was
God.
really funny.
That I did get a kick out of that.
Now, there's a movie that comes to my mind when I think about late 70s transition into 80s. It's a movie that I love a lot. It has a huge following. It has a semi-successful series. But usually when I think of this movie, I put it against Reanimator for some reason. And that movie is Phantasm. How do you feel about Phantasm?
Yeah. Phantasm, I have a great soft spot in my heart because I forget. When did it come out?
79.
79.
So I was 15. So and saw it at the drive-in. And as I remember, I just went with a bunch of people, maybe my cousins or whatever, and I didn't even know what I was seeing. And then there was this tall dude and this ball that went around, and I thought, good God. And I really probably wasn't even listening to it out of the car, and just watching it and thinking it was the weirdest, creepiest thing, that dude. So yeah, I have a soft spot for Phantasm.
Yeah, I love the tall man. He's awesome, right? Angus. I also love that.
Angus, yeah.
And I love the orb. And I have to say that a friend of ours, Matt Weiner, who also writes for our website, got me for Christmas a Christmas tree ornament of that orb, which is awesome.
Cool.
So that's cool. But I got to admit that the farther along it goes, the more it turns into a Ronnie James Dio video for me. And I got to say, I don't love the Phantasm.
Yeah.
And I don't like the sequels at all.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Reanimator, I love. I love Reanimator.
Oh yeah, that's a
And
fantastic.
I like
film.
the sequels.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to check out any of our hypothetical movies, but Reanimator's pretty high on our list because it seems like Jeffrey Combs is in almost every one of our conversations.
Nice. He's awesome. Oh my God. He's the
I think we
best.
did one with Jaws versus Titanic, and at the end, it was just Jeffrey Combs in a Jaws suit.
Nice.
I love that. I just love his just righteous indignation in that weird pouty face. he
Yeah.
has. Oh my God, I love him.
Yeah.
It's got that perfect mix of like social awkwardness and just like being just angry about everything, but like also interesting.
So, Paul, I know there was a time when I was listening to some of their podcasts, and I was just kind of jotting down everything that stood out. I was like, okay, these are the movies I need to see. And
I have a whole list of movies that whenever I listen to your show, like I'm constantly like writing them on my like Evernote, so I have them on like all that stuff. Like,
now, I will tell you,
Aw, thank
they've
you.
never stirred me wrong, but there's one that nobody can say anything about that will just be as amazing as seeing the film. And it wasn't until I heard their zombie podcast that I checked out Dead Alive. And I know you guys just watched it recently too. And I think everybody here just literally loves that movie to death.
that film's
Oh my God, it's so great.
It's just
Oh,
so
man.
over the top, but just amazing, and like everything in that movie works perfectly. Like the way the like character acts awkwardly around zombies, and it's just so out of place. And it just every moment of that movie gets better. Like it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's the one that for many years held the record for most gallons of fake blood used, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Was it beaten by the Evil Dead remake?
I think
Yes,
so.
because it was that was a record held by Evil Dead 2, and then Dead Alive beat it, and then the Evil Dead remake beat that. And it rained blood in that one, so I don't know if anybody's going to beat the Evil Dead remake.
I was going to say, what would it take to top that?
Yeah.
just Blood the movie, or just up
Yeah.
on the screen.
Yeah.
I do love Dead Alive, and I wish Peter Jackson would make another horror movie. I mean, I understand he's Oscar bedecked at this point, and he's just going to keep making these high-minded, giant.
Yeah, he should.
But I love.
Maybe these particular movie critics need to tell him that.
I love New Zealand horror. They make the funniest horror movies, and I think a ton of that is owed to him. I think he's kind of the legend in New Zealand horror filmmakers.
One day he'll make the Killing at the Shire or something like that, or like the Shire.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, Frodo Baggins he could contract zombieism and then just go to town. That'd be fun. I see that.
I'd watch that Lord of the Rings movie. Oh, see, there's another thing. I don't think George has ever seen a Lord of the Rings movie.
Not
is that right?
one.
I have not. I
Not
saw
one.
about 15 minutes of that one that we went into just to see the restored. What do we go into that for?
It was the first of the Hobbits, and it's because he changed the frame rate, and it was
Right.
a different.
We wanted to see
filmmaking
what that looked
process.
like. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
already seen the movie.
Right.
So you saw the first 15 minutes. Man, you only had to stay for 3 more hours.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth. It just doesn't. And I'm not denying that they're probably very good, but boy, I can't be less interested.
You know what? We could do a podcast on medieval horror, and you will not have seen any of it. You will have skipped every single one.
Yeah.
So what else we got, Paul?
Well, of course, there's like the whole zombie craze that like kind of
Oh, man.
came and then like went away for a while, then like resurfaced again and like hasn't gone away.
Yeah. Again, I think you look at what was going on in the world when it came out, when it went away, and when it came back. There's usually a correlation there.
Yeah, there's before Night of the Living Dead, it was they were voodoo, right? It was a voodoo. Like Romero was the first one that made it sort of. They're dead. They're all messed up. They're and that was a reaction to Vietnam. And then he was the one I think who would really repeatedly make it a political comment. This was in the Dawn of the Dead. It was really about American consumerism, and but that's the thing I think is that zombies are. It's so easy to pin a metaphor on a horde of zombies, and I think that's why they always return. Because when you're making a statement film, it's very easy to use zombies to represent whatever it is you want to represent. And I think that was one of the reasons why they came back very strong when W was in office, because there were a lot of filmmakers who felt like, just like in the late 60s and early 70s, you could make a comment. They felt like that sort of it was easy to do it again. But then, of course, The Walking Dead just made them incredibly popular.
Yeah.
So then it was like abandon any political statement. Everybody wants to see zombies, and then they just became sort of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I think with zombies, a lot of that was people kind of realized that there was a lot more than just like dead people walking around. Like they realized that basically society would change, and there's like that kind of inherent fear in people of like just in a moment society can kind of crash. I think it kind of it transcended what it originally was meant to be, and it's definitely an interesting thing. I mean, now there's so much zombie stuff, but it's definitely an interesting genre to say the least.
It is, even
Hey,
though I
Paul.
think too, just around the time that they sort of jumped the shark, then all of a sudden Zack Snyder and Danny Boyle made him run. And as soon as that happened, it was like, damn, zombies are scary again.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Hey, Paul, I'm going to put you on the spot. I usually agree with them on almost everything, but there's one movie that they both hate terribly, and so I thought it was going to be crap. And I watched it, and I couldn't help but maybe so bad it was good. I really don't know. I've only seen it once, but it cost a good chunk of change to find on VHS because I like to collect the art cover, and it's well worth the price. But we need to get you to watch. Okay, Children shouldn't play with dead things. And I know. But then, Paul, you're gonna need to pick a side. You're either with me or against me, man. When you see that movie, I need to know if it's good or if it's terrible.
Yeah, it's a movie people have told me to watch for years, and I'm like, I'll get to it. And I think I had a copy, but I lost it in a move or something like that. But I'll definitely have to find that at some point. I'm sure Corey has it. He's got thousands of movies.
That's funny. That's one that we watched again because you hadn't seen it.
I hadn't seen it.
And that's another one that I saw at the drive-in. When I spent a lot of time at the drive-in, apparently. That's another I saw at the drive-in when I was a kid, and I was proud of myself when we rewatched it for how many scenes I correctly remembered. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. That was how.
Was that kind of your first horror movie?
I don't know. Maybe it might have been. But my cousins again were introducing me to that stuff. But it's bad, man. It's bad. But that's all right. Some people they do have that threshold of so bad it's good.
Yeah,
and,
so I
and
do.
that's totally fine.
He doesn't. George doesn't. He can't ironically enjoy a horror movie. He can, and I can. I love. And as he knows, one of my very favorite movies is Motel Hell. I love that movie. And and Squirm is another one he can't tolerate. Of course, the one that he really hates is Houseu.
Oh,
House.
God, yeah.
I love Houseu. We did a review of that one a while back. That film's amazing.
I
You do
love
love
that movie.
Well, believe me, I found out that I am in the minority. I only have one or two here over on my island. But
Well, George, I still haven't seen it, so I'll let you know.
It's so bizarre.
Well, hold out
so
hope then. But that is not my bag. I wanted to kick the TV in.
No.
But hey, that's what I said. If you like it, God bless you.
Oh my God! And Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. He's still mad at me because I like it. He'll just bring it up periodically
I don't
out of
like
nowhere.
that at
He
all.
hated that so bad.
I just thought it was such a disservice to the first one that was so good, and then it really went off in bad places for me.
Hey, Paul, do you remember what I told you about number 2 since you haven't seen it yet? Do you remember that conversation I was trying to build you up for when we were going to do a Tobe Hooper month? I was like, look, it's nothing like the first one. Get that out of your head. Don't even pretend they're related. I was like, just think of it like an all-around different horror movie and just see if you enjoy it.
It's kind of like Gremlins 2, where they just don't, where they're not serious about it at all. Or
a little bit. It's got that very 80s sort of superficial. I mean, it just doesn't have the sort of artistic integrity of the first one at all. But I like it. I always did like it because it's kind of disturbing.
Yeah, what's her? Was it Carolyn Williams? Is that? Am I remembering that right? Is that who the lead actress was? The DJ?
Yes, I think so. Stretch.
Stretch.
I remember she made a cameo in the Rob Zombie Halloween Part 2 movie. And I was like, hey, that's that lady from.
Yeah, and Dennis Hopper, Bill Moseley, and
Bill Moseley. He could be in anything.
He's Chop Shop. You didn't hate him. He's always setting like a little piece of wire on fire and then scraping off
I did hate him because he's constantly going, he sounds like, what do you think, Leatherface? Hey, Leatherface. I hated that.
He's like, you did in my plate.
George was so mad at me for making him watch that movie. He was really mad.
Yeah, I was really disappointed because it was totally, like you said, it's totally, don't even think of it as being in the same universe as the first one. And I was just really disappointed in the tone.
Yeah, I'm surprised they actually made a sequel to it because, it's one of those films that wraps up at the end. Where it feels like it wraps up. It's like, what are they going to do now? She got away and, he's just still crazy there, so...
Yeah, well, actually, then they made the next one. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 stars Viggo Mortensen, and 4, which is god-awful, stars Oscar winners Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, and what the hell what's with that mechanical leg thing?
I know! Yeah, 4 is just weird.
There's one thing I love about
What's going
Part 4,
on now?
though.
I don't understand. 4 is just weird.
So, Paul, did you see number 4, The Next Generation?
I haven't. I've only seen the first one and the remake and the prequel.
That's not too bad.
Me of, you ever see Silent Night, Deadly Night 2?
Yes.
Oh my God, that movie's so ridiculous. Garbage day.
I'm not making this up. We just said that at work the other day. We just kept going, garbage day.
That's one of those films where it's like 50% just like the original film, just flashbacks, and the rest of it's just ridiculous. It's like,
Yep.
What were you thinking? But there's like a trend to that. Like, wasn't The Hills Have Eyes 2 kind of like that? Where it was like,
Oh God.
yeah.
That was so. Yeah, The Hills Have Eyes 2, I thought was much more disappointing than Texas Chainsaw 2.
Oh yeah, agreed.
It was just neutered and stupid and I mean, for as you know, like envelope pushing as the original was. The second one could have been made for TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think The Hills Have Eyes 2 was about as necessary as if they had made a Last House on the Left 2. It would make no sense. Like, why?
Right. And it was sad. It made me sad because Wes Craven made it. It's not even like it's not even like he let somebody do a sequel to his property. He actually directed that giant flaming turd.
Well, as we talked about, he has his peaks and he has his valleys.
He does have his valleys. He absolutely does.
He does.
Is there anything else you want to go over, Paul, with our decades of horror?
Trying to think of like some other decades we haven't covered. Well, your favorite decade you kind of mentioned with the silent films. Anything you want to say about any of those?
Only if you guys want to talk for another 2 hours. No, I think everybody understands that, one horror movie, it's always loosely based on another horror movie, whether the filmmaker is inspired by it, they saw it when they were younger, or they watch it and they think, I like that idea, but I feel like I can do something better. And so many things dial back to the silent film era. And I think they would agree with me that, a movie that's a lot better than Dracula, Nosferatu.
Oh my God. Yeah, I love that movie. It's my favorite vampire movie. It's my favorite vampire. Max Schreck, Nosferatu.
Well, and there's so many. You look at a lot of those silent movies, and obviously they had to rely on visuals, and there are so many iconic visuals in a lot of them. When you think of something like Dr. Caligari, just especially the restored version of that. Or Phantom of the Opera, just little snippets, not even full scenes, just with frames that just stay with you, that are so well constructed and put together. They're unforgettable, really.
Definitely.
Yeah, you just mentioned my favorite movie of all time, Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah,
it's great.
I love it so much that I have never and will never watch the Universal remake that they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it'd be great. I don't know. I'm just not going to do it.
And so much of that, even camera angles, like when he's up there on top of the building and the wind is blowing, and the camera is down below looking up at him. It makes it even more fearsome. There's so many different, cool looking shots and framings in that movie. And then the way he looks, of course, is fantastic, and that is iconic still today.
Right, and the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is so gorgeous to look at. I mean, it's just so like visually almost overstimulating. And I think you're right. I mean, they weren't dealing with dialogue. They knew it was just going to be title cards. And the type of acting that the directors had to focus on was so much different and less nuanced than today.
Yeah.
That really the energy was on the visual element of the film. And I think that's one of the reasons that, especially in horror, they just looked so nightmarish and gorgeous.
Yeah, they look fantastic.
One thing with Phantom of the Opera was in certain scenes, depending on like what kind of tone they were trying to set, the underwater kind of theater looks like, sometimes it looks like an underwater city and it's really nice, and other times it's like a dungeon. So I think that film really like did a lot for like setting tone in like future movies, I felt.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Speaking of Dr. Caligari, that has got to be one of the best movie posters that I've ever seen. There's one that it's not the traditional one. It's not even the second traditional one, but there's a weird one, and it has her kind of laying down, and he's hovering over her, and it's so melodramatic, and it looks so artsy, and it's like a $200 poster. I will have it one day.
Well, it's not horror, but my favorite movie poster is still Step Brothers with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly.
That is a pretty great movie poster.
Do a whole podcast on just movie posters.
Yeah.
Yeah, so any last words on decades of horror?
Well, I think, like we talked about in the beginning, I think right now is such a great time to be hopeful and excited about the output we're seeing from new directors and independent film,
Right.
especially. A24 is killing it, and now
Yeah,
we've got
of course.
that Neon
Yeah.
that just came out that appears to be killing it.
Yeah.
And it's a great time. I mean, we've been so impressed over the last just few years. I think there's great reason to be excited.
Well, if you think about just what's in theaters right now, right this minute, you can still see Get Out, right? And Raw is in theaters, which is brilliant. And The Void, which is great. And The Black Coat's Daughter, which is really great. There's no better time on earth to be a horror
And
fan
then
than
there's
right
a
now.
lot of buzz on that the Bad Batch. The new one.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Lily Amarpour.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
Looking forward to that. So yeah, it's a good time right now. A really good time.
One thing I
So-
kind of noticed was I think about like really iconic monsters in film, like Frankenstein, Dracula, Mummy, and Wolfman. And I think of like slashers like Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers. I haven't really seen too much like in the last like 10 years of like really iconic figures. So I might be wrong on that. I just can't really think of any. But I'm kind of wondering if there's going to be anything like that. I guess you can't tell till years later, but
It's true. You know what? I think you're right. And one of the things that I think might influence that is the tremendous popularity of superhero movies, right? Because all of the focus is on the villain. You've got like these, iconic superhero comic book villains. And I think it has kind of taken some of the, menace out of them as horror film icons. It's just a thought that I have. I don't have anything to back that up.
And don't forget, you've got Tom Cruise's version of the Mummy coming out here pretty soon.
Oh my God. How awful does that look?
Yeah, I couldn't tell what the hell was going on. I was like, is this another Mission Impossible crossover? But, as we're kind of coming to a close, I wanted to throw one more big question out, and it's right in tone with what we're talking about. We say that, horror movies, now's the time to be a horror fan. Horror's picking back up. It's getting better and better again. What's the number one movie you're looking forward to that's coming out this year?
I'm very much, like I just mentioned, I'm very much looking forward to this Bad Batch. We loved Girl Walks Home Alone at Night from Anna Lily Amirpour, and this is her next one. And everything I'm reading has a lot of great buzz. So that's the first one right now on my radar.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's really the thing that I'm probably looking most forward to. Raw was huge for me. Get Out was huge for me, and sadly, Belko Experiment, which turned out to suck. They were the ones I was most looking forward to. I guess It also, to be honest with you, I gotta say, I'm looking forward to It.
yeah, I saw Belko Experiment. It was definitely gory, but God, that ending was terrible.
Yeah, I was very disappointed. I thought didn't really bring anything new at all, anything really new or interesting.
And I was particularly disappointed because not only is the director a good one, but the James Gunn wrote it, right? So he wrote and directed Guardians of the Galaxy. He wrote and directed Slither, which is one of my very favorite creature feature horror movies. I mean, there are so many great things that he's done, and I expected it to be funny, and I expected it to be more, savvy, have something political to say, but it didn't. So I was sad about that.
I guess I'm a little more open to. I got like a whole book of like, can't wait for this one, can't wait for. I'm so ready to dial into It and Annabelle 2 and Insidious 4, and then Leatherface is coming out probably beginning of next year. But just I feel like the next 6 months are going to be so packed.
We're really hoping that the Suspiria remake comes out this year. This is one we're excited about.
Yeah,
and then Eggers, who did The Witch, which we loved, he has started filming Nosferatu, which he's remaking, so I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I'm really not a fan of the original Suspiria, but everybody involved in this new one.
Oh, Tilda Swinton.
I'm on board.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
You think that Chloe's going to do a good job?
I do. I do. George, especially. You're a big Chloe Moretz fan.
Yeah, I mean, she's had some missteps, if I say. But I think she's talented. Yeah, and the supporting cast that I've read about that one, I'm hopeful because I've always, that's another one that I always kind of get the side eye for bad mouthing it, but I think it's pretty boring, the original. Hopefully, I'm looking to they can bring some freshness into it.
What about Dark Tower? So I'm not familiar with that book at all. Is that horror? I know it's Stephen King and it's Idris Elba, so yes, please. But I don't know. Is that horror?
I believe so, yeah. I saw the original, which was, well, not the original. I saw some version of it. It was really terrible, but I think they were trying to make it a horror film, so I'm going to go with yes on that one.
And I'm just going to say that those books are way too long, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It just looks like sort of post-apocalyptic Wild West to me, but I don't know. But Stephen King, I'm thinking maybe.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward to seeing that anyway.
I think the movie I'm looking forward to the most is probably Alien Covenant. Like, that could be really good or really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm worried that I was pretty disappointed in Prometheus.
Yeah, I liked it better than you did, but I'm not loving the trailer.
No.
I'm not.
No.
But, we'll hold out some hope.
We will.
Yeah, could go one way or the other. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the remake of It. Like, I've seen the
It'll
trailers.
be good.
It's like, it's gonna be weird not having Tim Curry there. Like,
That's really true. I got to give you that. Tim Curry he's the best no matter what he is. He's the best evil clown. He's the best Satan. He's the best sweet transvestite. He's the best everything.
Yeah.
But the trailer for the first one looks good, and I'm glad they're breaking it into two movies because the second half of that book just sucks, and the resolution is terrible. But we can still hold out hope that the first movie will be great because then it's still about that clown.
Yeah, the clown.
I did not know they're breaking it into two movies.
Last I heard, that was the case.
Yeah, is that true? I don't know. If I remember right, the original, the TV, it went on. It was a miniseries, right? It went on for days.
Yeah.
So.
And part one had the clown and the little kids and was awesome. And part two had all the sitcom stars. And I'm not going to give it away, but it's not a clown and it's not scary and it sucks.
oh, Dave, they're coming out with Saw 8.
Oh yeah, I forgot. That's on my list too.
Legacy.
So bad. I don't understand. They said
I'm dedicated, man. If I've seen the first one, I'll watch every single sequel. So
yeah, I'm gonna end up seeing it. I know it, but like, I'm not gonna like it. I'm just gonna sit there in the theater angry until it's over.
Just like Rings.
Called me.
Just like Rings. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one.
I was so mad watching that movie. I wasn't the only one either because there's just two women in front of me and they was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe we came to this." I'm like, dude, I hear you.
Would you say it's better or worse than the Poltergeist remake, which was awful?
It's worse than the Poltergeist remake.
Oh gosh, there's no hope.
Yeah, no.
Reminds me, I for some reason ended up seeing the movie The Bye Bye Man, which was really bad.
Oh,
and
jeez.
I just remember walking out of the theater, and there was this couple walking out too, and the guy was just apologizing to his girlfriend for taking the that was the best part of that.
Should have been a drive-in.
Anything else anybody wants to say on this topic, or?
No, it's.
I think that
we appreciate the getting the chance to talk it up.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, guys. It's been a lot of fun. So, yep. This has been another B-Movie Chat on Horror Through the Decade.